Hello internet, hello Twitch. Here it comes. Yeah, we should be up and running pretty soon. We should be up on lichess pretty soon. Subscriber stream. Anyway, there were a bunch of subscribers here yesterday, and I told them about today, so hopefully you guys will be here. If not, we'll just make do with what we've got. Nobody in the chat. Oh, Okano's here. All right. Okano, if you want to play or analyze a game, you know, let me know. We can set up like an analysis board if you got something you want to look at. If nobody else has any ideas, I could just share some stuff with the viewers. So basically, I'm making this stream like specifically for just the subscribers. Nobody else, you know. The other players, the viewers are welcome to join, even chat. We got a lot of regulars who can't afford to subscribe, which is fine. I've got my lucky towel here today because it's very humid. And how's the weather in Cyprus? I'm sure that it gets pretty hot, but it's nice to be on an island. All right, so if nobody else has any suggestions, we can analyze something here. Analysis board. Go to studies. What do you think? Okay, no. Give me some input. Was 47 today? Are you kidding? Oh my god. That's insane, dude. You gotta go on vacation in like Norway or something. Alright. Yeah, let's play some blitz then. Blitz or game analysis. Fine with me. We're gonna play some different openings. I like to mess around playing a wide variety of openings. Little Pingwing is here. Alright, we're gonna analyze your game, Little Pingwing, if we have time and you want to. I thought we'd start with a blitz game here. I was actually working on this with one of my students today in a morning lesson, this exact position. My student, he doesn't like to play the Benoni, so he doesn't like to play c4 and allow d4. But actually I can play the Benko still, so I could play that. Let's play castles. I could play c4, d4, b4 with the Benko opening reversed. The Benko gambit reversed. Dilia Travra, Wildfire. Dilia Trav, I can't say it. I'm gonna give up. Borko says, why don't you play Title Tuesday? I mean, besides the fact that I don't play on chess.com, I don't know. E6, anyway, I don't believe in online tournaments for prizes. Goes against my better instincts. Okay, E6, this is very quiet, an interesting move order. So if I play D4 now, you can take and play E5. That's actually a pretty good line. I don't want to talk too much till I get into ridiculous time pressure. Yeah, this is on lichess, so I'm not going to promote like chess.com. I have an account on chess.com, but I almost never ever go there. And the few times that I've played there, like most of the opponents are using computers. Just not interesting. Okay, you put the game into your own study. It's the last third chapter. We will do that next. Okano is gonna answer the c4 question. Black has a number of options here. This is actually the most interesting move, I think. So we're playing a kind of Benoni, where Black has played e6, which feels like a kind of wasted move, but it's not necessarily a Benoni. I would have to play e3 for it to be a Benoni. I think this move is more dynamic. Okay, we're playing a Benko, where he's played his pawns like kind of inflexibly. A little bit of an idea on this. Let's see. Mamedyarov uses this type of idea to beat Boris Gelfand twice. Except he was white when he did like e3 and then d5. And now Okano plays knight c6, which is interesting. I think that the book line is pawn takes pawn, a3, knight c6. If I'm not mistaken, you're supposed to take, and then after a3, then you play knight c6. That's supposed to be the best. Here he played knight c6. I have the feeling, although I could simply take on c5, I have the feeling I'm supposed to play probably b5 here, which disrupts his development. And we've got to play for e3, obviously, at some point. But a kind of weird position. Brundlefil, you're late, but not really too late. Tom Baron cheated in Title Tuesday, so Mr. William won't play. He was cheated yesterday. There's already enough cheating going on. I don't need to frustrate myself by playing in a Title Tuesday tournament. I mean, you don't need to play in a tournament there to face cheaters. Like, literally, I played like 10 games, and I think like half of them were people using engines, just in like random games. I can't imagine what the title tournament, like, what the rated tournament. Okay, if these are really title players, I mean, I guess the majority of them would be honest, but I'm just not really affiliating myself with chess.com. Not my social scene. Although I do have an account there, so let's see. Knight a5. Yep, I think this looks right. We need to break the center with e3, but at what cost? Freedom. All right, so we go d3. We'll take it from here. Just thinking of my friend Naj Gabor. He's actually on here a lot playing Crazy House. Gabix is his name. He's a strong international master from Hungary, but he plays basically just like Crazy House on lichess. And I've seen him playing this type of thing with black, actually, like what I'm doing in Benoni kind of Blumenfeld lines. You could even play e4 and close the center, I guess. But it feels more thematic to attack d4. Alright, so we've got his knight on a5, and we've got a central mass of pawns. Looks like a good start. It looks like a good start. He can nibble away at my pawn structure with like a6. We'll play a4. That seems to be no problem. Mule Skinner's here, little penguin. Let's take attendance. We've got Okano, little penguin, Diliatrava. Yeah, Brundlefil and Mule Skinner. So that's five of our subscribers. I like this move, knight g4. That's a pretty good move. Queen e2. Okano's trying to get, he's trying to get dynamic, and I think he needs to do something. I don't blame him for that. Now a6. I was thinking a6 there. I guess this move is actually a sacrifice of some sort. Or just a blunder. Just a blunder. I can make like... I can just play knight e1. That's like the meanest move. Because that just protects my... it protects my d3 pawn. We're just going to win a piece. So... Too fast, Okano. A little bit too hasty decision with the b6. Up until then, I think it's interesting. Maybe white's better, but it's a very imbalanced, weird structure. Killer Cast TV with only subscribers. You're welcome to watch, man. Alright. You're welcome to watch and chat. I mean, you're absolutely welcome here. Just... This is like a subscriber stream, so... You blundered mate in one. Alright, I want to take a look at the game before we start an analysis of another game. We have time here, so... Yeah, I was just talking about this like a week ago with another one of my students, and we talked about this exact thing. Basically, c4, and... okay, I've actually seen this position more often. Like, I'm not castled and black's pawn's back on c7. That's another possibility. It's pretty much the same thing. Black plays e6 and then d4. It's surprising because, his pawns are in two different, like, basically two different phalanxes. And it looks strange to play d4 with e6. But in practice, it's actually not that bad. As I said earlier, basically, Mamedyarov did this to Gelfand twice. He played, like, c4, knight f6, d4, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, e3. And then Gelfand was like, hey dude, I play the King's Indian and I play like the Grunfeld, But what are you doing to me? You know, how do I play the Grunfeld? How do I play, like, I don't know. Gelfand could just play a normal King's Indian, but for some reason he wanted to play aggressively, you know, so he played the sharpest move, which is c5. And twice Mamedyarov has beaten him with this. Basically the mirror image of the game we just had, except with colors reversed. And I mean, the thing is that although it's not that great for white or black if we turn the board around, it's just that he puts the opponent in a position that he's maybe not comfortable. Gelfand plays the King's Indian. He plays Grunfeld fantastically, but he doesn't play the Benoni, you know. So he was like very uncomfortable in Benoni type position. Clash Kid, what's up? We need a better information system. Yeah, I can probably send you guys messages by Twitch email. I was just looking at that. So when we do a subscriber stream, I will send out in the future. We're gonna send out a notice. But yesterday I did mention it. Like I thought everybody, you know, who was there yesterday was paying attention, and we just decided, okay, yeah. I mean, I just announced it, but I should send you guys a message via Twitch. Who are subscribers will get it in the future. But we're gonna try to do this like once a week and alternate days a little bit as much as possible, you know. So some people can't come on a certain day, we can mix it up. But anyway, so like d4, it's like white should be able to get something because the pawns, you know, aren't really cohesive. But b4, if we look here, like b4 and d3 and e3, d3 doesn't do it for me. d3 is just not dynamic enough. You might as well play e3 right away. But b4 is like the sharpest move. So c takes b4, a5 is possible. That's interesting. C takes b4, and I was showing this to one of my students last week. a3, this apparently is the main line. Okay, no, like takes and knight c6. But we found something here in this position, I believe. Bishop b2. It looks like this move, bishop b2, is the best try. The idea of taking with the knight. Taking with the knight on a3. A weird sort of benko. Number of games here. And white seems to be like, you know, with good compensation for the sacrificed pawn. I just wanted to check out the opening though of our game. So I played b4, he played knight c6. No games found. Theoretical Master Novelty. Zen Chess subscribed. Thank you, Zen Chess. The stream today is just for subscribers. If you guys want to play blitz or analyze your own games, we're going to do that. So knight c6 is a new move, but it transposes, or what, we got no games. Everybody takes on b4, then you can play knight c6. Okay, it doesn't look that bad to me. And I could take on c5, but it looks like b5 is probably critical. Surprising no one's tried this ever. You know, it looks like the best chance. And now Stockfish says like e3. That's what I wanted to play, but the c4 pawn is unprotected. So, and then what to play here? Bishop e7. I guess bishop d6 is more active, supporting e5. You know, that's probably key. Alright, I mean, that's the extent of the opening. I think I just mentioned that you could play e4. The computer likes it and would probably capture on e3 anyway. And this is our game. F takes c. I thought this was the castles, bishop b2. We actually transposed to a Silecki Chess Explained Luther game from 1998. Crazy. So, wow, so Thomas Luther played a6, and Silecki played, I would assume would play a4 there. Yeah, that was the game. But it's interesting here, Okano played a move that's better according to the engine. Knight g4. I mean, I like this move because you're hitting my weakness, but you're also maybe setting up the possibility of exchanging the dark squared bishops, and I think that's probably critical. To play queen e2, and Okano just simply blundered here. I mean, I thought that bishop f6 was one of his ideas. would be the idea. But apparently I don't have to, you know, trade bishops on his terms. No excessive use of emotes. What do you mean by analyze games? I mean analyze your games. Like, if you played some games on lichess, we can put them up on the board and take a look. If you played a game in a tournament, that you could also share with us here too. So not just playing, but we can analyze games too. I wanted to take a look at, yeah, specifically Little Penguin posted a link. Little Penguin, is that link good? Because I put my last game. Wait, she said wait. Is the second one now? It's the second one now. It's the last in the third chapter. All right. Let me see. Yeah, this is cool. All right, we're gonna try to go find Little Penguin's stream. You're like let's see if we can find your analysis board. Little Penguin study. Community, players. Alright, let's check the studies here. We got a study. Yeah. Alright. And so, is second one? Okay, this has to be right. Do you recommend a lost game? I recommend an interesting game. It doesn't have to depend on how like lost or not. Yeah, let's take a look at this. So they're white. It's you know what? I mean, if you play the English opening and people play e6, it's kind of a downer. You know, you can't really play the English. The best you can do is play the reti or reti. So let's go on here. But I want to get Little Penguin's insights into this game. So e6, looking for the Queen's Gambit declined. And then white played g3, which is fine. And then f5. We're in Dutch territory, and you're a c4 player. So, you know, probably you don't want to transpose into a mainline Dutch. Bishop g2, knight f6. And now knight f3. This is kind of, you know, kind of a semi-passive Dutch for black. I mean, you can certainly transpose to the main lines of the Dutch. The Simon Williams variations with like d6 and stuff like that. It's actually, okay, no, what's that? You have the one that I played with Monkey Pushing Wood that ended in a draw. We can also take a look at a game you played with me that you found interesting if you want to. So this is Little Penguin's game, and I'm just wondering, you know, if they would feel comfortable playing d4, you know, because that's always obviously the most critical move. But if you're playing the English opening, you may not want to go there. So, all right, castles, knight c3. Is there any disadvantage in knight c3? No, it looks like a commonly played move. The problem with knight c3 is that if black plays d5, I'm not sure how we're gonna handle that, you know, because I don't really want to see, you know, our knight getting kicked with like d5, d4. But apparently knight c3 is quite common. I mean, I don't know what I would do here with white. I would transpose to the normal Dutch, you know, if I was playing white in this position. Another good option might be to play like b3 and handle it like a double fianchetto, reti or something like that. So you have different possibilities. The only thing, knight c3 looks pretty common. I would imagine that d5 would be the question here. You know, what's going on after d5, and maybe The answer is that you just got to transpose to the Stonewall Dutch. I mean, you have no real options that I'm in love with. Maybe you can keep the tension there, but okay. D6 is like, is this the game? Yeah. So in the game, black ends up playing like a tempo down in a closed Sicilian clamp variation, or whatever you want to call it. You know, they just played e6 and e5 in 2 moves. They should play d5 in this position. I mean, it looks like the best try. This is Little Pingwing's game. Yeah, so if you play d4, you transpose to the Stonewall Dutch. It's actually not a bad setup for white. I would recommend playing like, queen c2 here, basically. Black doesn't really usually take this pawn here, and the plan is a minority attack with like rook b1, b4, b5. But Little Pingwing and most people who play the English opening, you know, aren't looking to necessarily transpose to a normal Dutch. So I guess if d5, you have to do something to keep the tension, which is like d3. Also maybe c takes d. C takes d, e takes d. So we'll take a look at this. This is really weird. This looks really weird to me. Kasparov short, apparently. A game from 1990, their match. I did not know that. E3 is a strange looking move, a little bit of a strange looking move for white. This is not the game though. This is not the game. I was just wondering how it would go. You know, apparently E3 is played here. This is really weird. This is Kasparov short 1990. What is the plan? King H8? B3. That is interesting. And so white puts the bishops on the long diagonals and plays like this. This is... He doesn't ever push the d pawn to d4, which would give black the e4 square forever. So anyway, let's go back to Little Pingwing's game. They didn't want to play d4. Black didn't play d5. Black played d6. White played d3. And now after e5, we have basically like a normal position where black has wasted a tempo. But it's probably not that devastating. So I don't know if Little Pingwing is here, but it looks like b4 is a normal move. Rook b1 is played. I often wonder, should rook b1 be played, you know, when there's no bishop on the long diagonal? Is it even necessary? So it looks like b4 is a standard plan. Another interesting idea, guys, for white in this kind of structure is to play c5. I like this a lot. C5, and basically chipping away at the black structure. So playing c5. I did this in a blitz game against that Meowazy guy the other day. Pretty much like a very similar position. This is an interesting possibility to play c5 here. You should keep this in mind. It's actually nice that you haven't bothered to play rook b1 in this sort of situation. You can play c5, like knight c6, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, and then, you know, there is a weakness for black along this diagonal, so I would be looking for ways to exploit that. The computer says e4. It is played in one game, and white is focusing on this possibility of maybe queen b3 check and knight g5 to try to infiltrate. But I mean, that could be kind of overrated. I think that it's like a tiny advantage for white. E4 is interesting. So the other plan is like b4, but Little Pingwing played bishop g5. This move is also okay. I don't have a problem with it. I've done similar plans. Normally, like when black goes like g6, bishop g7. Here, I don't like it as much because it's not really a pin. I think that I like either c5 or b4, and I think, you know, we'll expand on the queen side, play like it's a closed Sicilian position basically for white. You could even consider something like this, like knight e1, so you can play f4 with white if necessary to hold up black on that side, but that's kind of defensive. Little trick that, you know, people might not realize, but I mean, you know, in some positions you can meet like this sort of trick with like pawn takes pawn, knight takes knight, pawn, and you actually win a pawn. Just a tactical trick like you might want to know about in that kind of structure. Anyway, b4, queen e8. This seems to be how like most of the games go. Bishop b2 with extended fianchetto. I would say white has a small advantage. So you play bishop g5. The problem with this move is that you're probably flirting with trading black's like passive bishop on e7. So white has good play on the white squares, but I don't mind getting the piece out and trading it off, but it's probably helping black to equalize a little bit. This was good, knight d2, really good. That's, I think, part of the plan here, queen e8. And now maybe you should just take. Yeah, this is okay. Bishop takes, bishop takes. The problem is this bishop on this diagonal is pretty powerful. This is very similar to a game I played 2 months ago in Zalakaros. Except my opponent had played like g6. I had basically the same game. My opponent had played g6 in this exact type of position, and then captured with the bishop on f6 from g7. Yeah, Mule Skinner, you got a long game to go over. Okay, so we'll take a look here. I mean, knight d5 is good. You might want to try. I used this idea in the game I was just talking about, which may seem weird. We normally put the rook like here, but the idea is to protect this guy, and also, excuse me, also to have the c-file pressure. Like when you play knight d5, black will take it, and then your rook will have a lot of pressure down the c-file. So knight d5 is fine. Bishop d8. Rook b1 is a normal move. f4. I lost a game like this to a guy here on lichess, actually. Now b4. The computer is pointing out an important idea here, e3. This is an interesting move, and I used to play the English a lot. This might be worthwhile. Although it's like slightly weakening white's position on the white squares, black doesn't have a real good ability to control those white squares. Only the bishop on c8 really, and you have more than, you actually have 3 minor pieces that can control the white squares plus the queen. So I don't mind playing e3. e3 keeps the knight off of d4. It also stops black from, black doesn't have f3. So I think this is like a very solid way of continuing. But b4 is fine. Knight d4. Now I would definitely play e3. F takes e3. Knight takes e3. Okay, this is your mistake. So in this position, we've got to take with the pawn, because you want to get that knight off of that outpost square. Yeah, you want to get the knight off the outpost square. This was a serious mistake. You're leaving that knight in a very dominant position, and I'm not sure how it would go, but f takes e, and I'd say the game's about equal, basically. Though both sides have played well, it's pretty much about equal. So rook takes rook, queen takes rook. This is not really a problem. White has all the pieces that can operate on the white squares, and you're going to hope that you can play on the white squares for the rest of the game. So that was really, I think, where you went wrong. I mean, knight takes, and then black played really well here, actually. c6 was a pretty good move. And then this looks like a blunder, an oversight, we should say. Just a blatant oversight, and in a pretty good position. They should have played queen g6 and protected this pawn and started to migrate toward a kingside attack. All the black's pieces kind of focused on the king side. And that brings up another question. Well, I mean, okay, is knight e4 a good move at all? Hard to say, but this was a terrible blunder. Queen d7, you go back, now you're up a clear pawn, you're threatening knight c5. Life is good. And then a4, this is actually the engine's #1 choice. To play b5 and to pry open the white diagonal. It makes some sense. So just consistent. You might have had b5 too. a4 is good. You got time now. You've got a great outpost. Black blundered brutally by giving you the d pawn, which is the reason why your knight can remain on e4 forever now. So guys, we're just doing a subscriber stream here to let you know. We're gonna update you. I'll try to send you a message every time I do one of these streams, like once a week. We're gonna focus on analyzing players' games and subscribers, obviously, and then also fill in the gaps with some blitz games. You know, if you don't want to analyze, but you're here, you want to play a blitz game instead, that's fine too. This is Little Penguin's game, and a5, I think you made a mistake. So thematically, the whole setup when you play like bishop g5 and trade for the whatever knight on f6, your whole strategy is basically you're just gonna like take the white squares. Your whole strategy is a complete white square strategy. When you play a5, you're going off the rails in terms of like following your strategy. The whole thing makes sense in b5, and you're gonna like weaken this long diagonal and just have a clamp on d5, a really good solid position. I mean, this is just a blunder. They can't play c5. So a5 was like kind of playing on the dark squares instead of the white squares. I suppose it's kind of a trick because, you know, you want black to take and you could play knight c5, something like that. Black just ignores it, seeking counterplay. This is a good move. Challenging the strong knight, I like it. Looks good. You're a clear pawn up. Everything is good. Everything looks good here. Now we're looking at a file, maybe invasion. c5. I don't like c5 because, you know, it kind of makes your pawns sort of like not so fluid. Better to like just play a solid move like rook a1. The engine's talking about f4. This is a little higher risk type of move, although I don't see any concrete problem with it. It looks good too. But again, rook a1 would be my choice. Instead, she gets the outpost on d6. This also looks good. And f4 is beckoning, but black's got a lot of weaknesses here. I like this move too, though, you know, it's obvious that black will play bishop f6, knight e4, and then this is that bishop. I might want to take that bishop. I like rook a1 though. Focusing on a new weakness. f3 was a very solid move. Was that a blunder of some kind? Do you have something better here? Bishop takes h3, queen takes h3, rook takes c6. That's obviously scary, but you have the queen defending laterally. So this was kind of fear of ghosts. I would have been scared too, but this queen ends up like really like refuting all these sort of tactics maybe. Soroche, welcome. You also created a study. Cool. We'll take a look. So rook takes c6. Yeah, this is a little bit like, okay, it's scary to let the queen in there, but it doesn't appear white has anything, to like black has anything after f3. We all get afraid of ghosts sometimes, and yeah, you don't want to be greedy when you're up material. So Little Penguin here kind of hesitated and played a very solid move. I might be guilty of the same thing. Still, you're like a clear pawn up. I'm always telling people not to take risks when they're up material. So I like queen a2. Black is smart not to trade pieces. But that's like, okay, g4. G4 is kind of weird. I mean, you know, it is like true you have the white squares and you want to have a white square bind, but I don't think I'd want to give him that kind of control of f4 here. So I think this g4 was... I think g4 was kind of unnecessary weakening of the position, and then you just decided to keep it solid. Black again was smart, avoiding exchanges, and then this was a brave move, taking on h5. What's the idea? You're going to hold on to the pawn? It looks good. Black never really had anything, just kind of looking for something that wasn't there, and you did a good job. I think this was a good game. Black never had enough counterplay to really, and this is basically, I mean, it's over after g4. There's no more counterplay. So overall, a good game. You never let your opponent really completely back in the game after they blundered that pawn. But the opening, you know, I don't really think that bishop g5 is objectively best, but then again, it's not bad, and I think that you played fine. few small mistakes here and there. It would have been good to kick that knight out. Let's see. It would have been good to not allow knight d4 in the first place. Maybe play like e3 here in this position. What do we play? e3 right away. Not even allowing knight d4 is possibly an improvement. Okay, guys, that was a cool game though. I like the English, and I have played, as I said, similar games myself, but it wasn't a decently played game by both sides. Black, obviously, I mean, the game was decided more or less by that oversight, you know, where Black hung the d6 pawn. So let's see, what are we up to next? We ought to have like some kind of order of things here. We've got Clash Kid. Let's see. Divlyatra was here. He was here next. I don't know. What are we gonna do? Mule Skinner. You get a message on your phone when the stream starts. Yeah, we'll try to do that to send messages to everybody. Let's go back to the stream. So thanks for the game. That was interesting. But I think overall well played. So who's next? Clash Kid and Mule Skinner. Mule Skinner, which game? Oh, okay. You got a link there. I've got to go to your. I've got two computers here, so I can't just click on the link. I have to bring it up. Alright. Listen, can you do me a favor, Mule Skinner? Can you guys send me, if you want to analyze a game, send me the link in a message on lichess. Can you do that? Like, Mule Skinner, can you send me the link in a message on lichess? And then we'll I'll be able to click on it on my other machine, which is much easier for me. But Little Penguin, overall a good game. You never made any serious mistakes, just little mistakes. So we'll take a look at this game, and we'll go to the game with we'll take a look at the game that Clash Kid wants to go over. All right. Let's see, can I open this? Yeah. Okay. So Mule Skinner, are you? Let me guess. You're playing black. Okay. Mule Skinner is playing black. Yeah, Bob also sent me a message. What am I on? Oh, I'm over there. I'm getting messages in the wrong place. Okay. So, it's the first time doing this, guys. It's going to take a little bit of time to coordinate, like how we decide we're going to organize this. This is Mule Skinner playing black. He likes to play the Benko, which is interesting because with white he plays all kinds of closed openings. I wouldn't consider the Benko to be a closed game. B5. He actually plays the French against D4. Yeah, I think Mule Skinner, you should play something like... No, I mean, this is like half joking, half serious, but Mule Skinner, you really ought to play like the Czech Benoni, you know? I mean, it would totally make sense. You play C5, and white plays D5. Why don't you play the Czech Benoni? I mean, you like closed positions so much that I think that would actually suit your style, and you wouldn't even have to change your repertoire. I like how the guy who cheated against me yesterday is challenging me. He's up to 2359 now. Guy who was 2379, he's now 2359. Maybe he created a new account. That's really sweet. So anyway, we're going back here to this game. What do you think of my suggestion of the Czech Benoni, Mule Skinner? Yeah, definitely. Not just over the board, of course. We can also analyze an over the board game if you guys want. But Mule Skinner, I suggest Czech Benoni, given the closed positions, how good you are and how much you love them. Anyway, so he played E3. Yeah, I mean E3. I haven't seen any analysis in a long time, and I never played the Benko seriously. I just know this by reputation. When I was in Budapest in 1998, Grandmaster Artur Kogan was like hanging out with us, and and he was an IM, and he needed to make his final GM norm in 1998, and we were at a closed tournament, and Kogan had to play like Lukács Péter, who was a really solid player with white, and I think Lukács plays this line, and I just remember like everybody thinking like how hard it is, you know, for black to play against e3. Another player who I know is a huge expert with white, FIDE Master David Grigo, who's basically retired from chess from Providence, Rhode Island, former 2500 USCF player. He's a theoretician and like an excellent dynamic opening player. Grigo also plays e3. So this line is like in the hands of a strong player like Lukács or Grigo, some kind of expert. It's really considered to be like one of the best lines for professionals against the Benko. So he chose this game because it's symptomatic for you to get a good position after the opening and lose track in the middle game. Yeah, I would think most people would have a hard time getting a good position out of the opening in this line. So you made an interesting comment about trading queens. Soltigo, I love it when my opponent doesn't want to trade queens. Alright, so here we've got Belyansky Caruana 2009. Is this main line? Bishop b7 is not the main line. g6 is the main line. But Bishop b7 looks dynamic, it looks logical, and you could play a bunch of different moves. A takes b is definitely a main line. Isn't it like bishop takes b5, queen a5 check here? I know a little bit, but it's been so long, you know, since I've looked at this, and never really seriously at that. Daniel Dubov. That's an interesting player to follow. He's got a huge career ahead of him. Alright. So, bishop b7 it is. This is one variation. It looks like white's score is good across the board. I mean, if you look at this, 38, 25, 44, 22, 40, 27, 54, 15. That doesn't look good. This is why this line is one of those like Benko killer lines, along with f3. I think one of the most problematic variations. So bishop b7, knight c3, queen a5 transposes to the queen a5 variation. Now bishop d2. Okay, this looks normal. So this is all book. A takes b. It goes back to 1986. Anatoly Karpov against Tony Miles. Bishop takes b5. And so this is apparently like main line. Queen b6. And now queen b3, knight f3, bishop c4, bishop c4. One of many moves. Bareyev. And then e6. This is very dynamic. It looks like the best move, the only move. It's amazing, but what else can black do? d6, maybe you could play. So e6, e4. It's all theory. This is a very sharp line. And then queen e2 was played. So apparently your opponent, you know, he knew this much, but now he was out of book. And you're out of book too, because he's out of book, and he plays a move that leaves book. I mean, queen e2, on the surface, it looks like a natural move. But it doesn't develop the king side. My first inclination is like you're just going to take on d2 and develop the rest of your pieces, and you're just like clearly better. Or like you're just up a pawn. A pawn that, you know, you got your pawn back for nothing, basically. So queen e2, yeah, you did it. It's maybe the best move. I mean, this taking here though, you have to calculate this. I mean, rook b1, queen takes d2. That's the question. Queen takes d2, knight takes d2. This is very, very tactical. You take on b7, is that a move? No. Okay, so you'd have to take back on d2, and resulting position here, where material is equal, black has a better structure, and the development doesn't seem that devastating. So, yeah, I mean, maybe this line is actually better. I would have like probably played what you played, but if you look at this a little bit more, we start to see that this is pretty forcing. Queen takes b2, and this is a very forcing variation. Queen takes d2 check, queen takes d2, knight takes d2, king takes d2. And I think the key is this position, like analyzing this position, evaluating this position. Maybe Mule Skinner on the surface, look at this, like best move bishop c8. On the surface it looks like black's really just extremely passive. But at the end of the day, very important concept in the Benko. I lost to Gennady Segalchik once in a line where I played like a pawn sacrifice. I mean, you're just a pawn up, and you got a better structure. This pawn island is so good that it looks like you just creep out and slowly consolidate, and you just don't have any weaknesses. I mean, the knight can go to a6, so it looks like. Whereas normally taking a pawn on b2, if it was a blitz game, I probably wouldn't do it. But if this is like a longer game, you can force a trade of queens here, and that makes it, you know, all very tempting. So instead, you made the natural move, which is also okay, grabbing this guy, and then, you know, creeping out in development. And okay, this is a little different. You didn't get your pawn back, but you've got the bishop pair and a very good structure. Why does white take his knight? Why doesn't white take his knight? Why doesn't white take his knight? Which knight? Sorry guys, I did something weird last chat. That's an old message. Okay, little penguin, we're done that. Okay, bishop b7 recommended in the book I studied. Too much theory in chess. Yeah, there's a lot of theory, but I mean, it was a choice. Mule Skinner's variation is still okay. He's a little behind in development here. He decides to play e5. This is a move that it bothers me a little bit. Why? Why does this move bother me? You know, that's what we got to ask ourselves the question. Okay, you're a little cramped here. I mean, maybe you're not that comfortable. It's more like a Benoni. Or some kind of weird. This is more like a Benoni or some sort of weird, like Blumenfeld, than it is like a Benko, you know. So perhaps you weren't that comfortable in the structure. But e5, while not a terrible move, it feels like it takes pressure off of the center, and kind of closes the structure. Again, I told you you should play the check Benoni on move 3. That's probably better. Okay, it's not a terrible move. e5. Can we find something better, something more flexible, like here? Knight a6, rook d1, threatening d6. That would concern me. And now you've got to find a plan. But this looks like an answer. This putting the knight on b4, putting pressure on this square on d5. If he plays d6, actually bishop f6, and doesn't look like there's any problems. Now your knight can drop back, you know, to c6. So I think that Mule Skinner, I don't like e5. It's kind of like taking, you know, the pressure off, releasing the tension from the position. You played e5, and now there's f4, which radically changes the position as well. He could have played knight g3. That's tempting. You got nothing to protect f5. If knight g3, then like g6 I think is pretty much forced. And then there's some questions here. It's like white's a little better. But f4 is interesting too. Plays bishop f6. Yeah, so you're not thinking enough about the future here. What you're going to do when he plays like knight e4. Or bishop f6, f5 even. Even that looks like kind of uncomfortable, you know. They're going to play knight e4. I feel like white's space advantage really matters. Our bishop is bad. Another reason I didn't like e5, the bishop becomes very bad. So I think here, this is another move, like just bishop f6 for that matter, for example. So staying more flexible. Close the structure, and here you could have taken on f4, which actually looks okay, because your dark squares are so good. You got so good control. The queen might even slide across here to h6 in some lines with 6th rank protection. Trading pieces with bishop a6 is also a possibility. So I think this is where things really started to go south, you know. And then he takes on e5. Here he has a couple of good moves, keeping it locked up, f5 or knight e4. So he plays a disaster. I think this is a disaster. Taking and making your bishop like the best minor piece on the board. Here you're back in the game. It was 90-30 per move. You're just totally back in the game, you know, in one move. Your bishop went from like the worst piece on the board to the best piece on the board in literally one move. I mean, after f5, you should think about sacking a pawn here, to be quite honest. I mean, this might not be a bad move under the circumstances, literally. You know, but here he's like taking on e5. Here, I'll just play that position with no f pawn for free. And then queen g5, which is just totally random looking move. It doesn't seem to coordinate really well with the other pieces. You know, it is a pity though to cut off your queen here. So that's like d6 is the normal move, but it does seem a little pity to cut it off. I don't mind. Alright, d6, everything looks good. Then it's like some sort of caveman type of attack. You just develop, plays rook f1, and then here we go. You traded the Jolly Joker in this position. That is a sin. This piece is so powerful. I mean, it's an awesome defender. It's outposted in the middle of the board, and it's also an attacker. And white doesn't have a dark squared bishop. That's why I called it the Jolly Joker. So this is just a really bad move. Bishop takes c3, trading that piece off. I realize that your position after that might still be okay, but you're giving up a big chunk of your game, I think, making this exchange. I mean, I know you wanted to put your knight on e5, but I don't like this. This is giving up a chunk of your advantage. And then knight e5. And now he's got some threats, and g6 is very weakening. You know, so I think Mule Skinner, this was the biggest mistake, playing bishop takes c3. It's just not a good exchange. You've got a monster piece on e5. Yes, unfortunately, your knight on d7 is kind of jammed up, but we have a lot of things we could do there instead of bishop takes c3, like queen d8, dude. I mean, this is obvious. First of all, you know, you're going to trade queens, you're just winning. Secondly, your queen will come to the aid of like the king side if you need defense. He wasn't doing that much on b6 except attacking b2. But finally, I think the idea here, which we might like, is knight b6. Now, so it's like a dual purpose move. The queen comes back and you free up b6 for the knight, which is going to be really awkward for white because there's a lot of pressure on this pawn, this weak pawn on d5. If that falls, you know, he doesn't have any center at all left. So, alright, that's it for that game. I mean, bishop takes c3, knight takes c3. Now white's got play. And now g6, and your dark squares are just falling apart here, you know. So suddenly anybody could be winning. f5, knight f6 check. Okay, so here, according to the engine, like king h8, knight takes h7 looks like it's a winning, a strong attack for white. It's a little weird for me, you know. King g7, knight takes h7. No, king g7, rook takes f5. Okay, that's right. Okay, we saw that. So if king h8, knight takes h7, that's pretty devastating. That's pretty devastating. Okay, let's see. King takes, rook h3 check, king g7, he chases you around, king h6, queen h6, king somewhere. Yeah, here it looks like you might be able to survive, actually. But it's really touch and go. I mean, he nearly has rook takes f5 check here. That almost ends you. But what is it? Like rook takes f5 check, pawn takes f5, rook h6, king g5? What is this? Or just king takes. Okay. So it got a little bit out of control, and white had a lot of threats, and you sacked the exchange, which was best. Taking on b2, threatening the tempting cheapo, knight f3 check, and still you shouldn't lose. You have great compensation for the exchange. The problem is this pawn on d6. Can't really afford to lose the base of your pawn chain. Queen f6 check, king g8, queen e6 check, king g8. And it's a draw. He played what? He played bishop b3, queen d4 check, king h1. Queen d4 check was a mistake according to the engine. I don't think it's a mistake. Okay, king h1. And then what? Well, how do we evaluate this position? That's something I think everybody should do, like all the time. Just a piece of advice: stop to evaluate. You know, don't just play the moves that look good. Every once in a while, stop to evaluate. You know, really concretely evaluate in your mind: who's winning here? Is it equal? Am I winning? Is he winning? Who's better? How much better? And why? You know, to kind of keep it clear in your mind, like at all times, who has the advantage? Try to be objective, and then say like what the advantage is, who has the advantage, and why. It will help you to find the right moves. So, and then knight g4. So you got a little bit frisky, allowing some kind of tactic, better endgame. That's hard to see. Yeah, I have to admit. The computer says he can play rook takes g4. You'd have to take with the pawn, I would imagine. Is this so bad? I don't know. Queen e7, that's very difficult to find, but it's threatening this really nasty mate on there. So now, that's hard to see. You're actually in trouble. So I guess you got a little bit frisky with knight g4. It would have been better to play knight d3 instead. It actually looks more risky to play knight d3 than to play knight to g4, ironically. Okay, he didn't see that. He played h3, and now knight e5, and this is just getting mated. You're just starting to fall apart. What happened here? Yeah, here, failure to calculate, I guess, is the problem. So you think it was a matter of time? You'll Skinner, let me know like if this was time related. Because you should be able to calculate your way out of this. You have two moves. Both queen e5 and bishop a6 would avoid losing material. The queen e5 endgame, queen takes, knight takes, you have a great exchange sacrifice position. The other way with bishop a6, it looks a little more tactical. But also another situation like bishop a6, rook e1, knight f2 check, king moves, and knight e4. You can keep it locked, you can defend d6. It's kind of fortunate. And rook takes e4, followed by queen takes d6 looks a little complicated. But man, you've got a knight that's worth a rook here. So rook takes e4, f takes e4, queen takes d6, and the beat goes on. I don't know who's really better here. Kind of difficult to calculate. But you're certainly not in any danger of losing. So you lost this. You basically lost this on this one move blunder. But I'm curious, was this time? Time trouble. He was in time trouble when he avoided the rep. You got in time trouble the last few moves. I mean, clearly you have two moves here. There's no need to lose unless you're about to lose on time. You wouldn't mind trading queens. I hope you wouldn't mind trading queens here, because I wouldn't mind trading queens here. It actually breaks his attacking chances. And well, there is this you have to calculate. You know, you could miss this variation. You're going to have to be willing to accept a draw. I think that's basically where we've been at for a while here. You know, since around this move. Around move 21, you lost your advantage, and it's been pretty clear. You've been fighting for a draw since then. So we'll have to settle for a draw there. Bishop a6 is a little more combative, and I still think that you're probably fighting for a draw. H takes g4, bishop takes f1, and it looks a little scary, like rook f1, rook f3, sorry, queen a1, king h2, and this is kind of dynamic where like either side could win on a slight mistake. But Mule Skinner, I wouldn't be too harsh on yourself. You basically, I think, lost an equal position on time. Okay, Clash Kid was up, and he was suggesting we go over a game here. Dibliatra and Bob. All right, we'll look at those three. If you guys want me to go over a game, just yeah, just send me a message here on lichess. That's the easiest way. Because if you put it on the Twitch stream, I can't easily like copy it over to my other machine. Okay, this was, I'm assuming it was this game. Tournament in Slovakia this year. You lost to a girl. You lost to this girl because I blundered in the end. Sex is not the issue. It's not in chess. Alright. D6. Clash Kid, are you playing white or black here? You're black. Your opponent could be Italian. We had Andrea from Italy who was watching the stream for quite a while. I think the Mule Skinner played all right. Actually, guys, I like this idea. I don't know if Clash Kid was gonna do this, but one good system is D5. If you want to play something tricky, Clash Kid, against the birds opening, this has been recommended. If you know the Scandinavian at all, I really like this. But I mean, on a purist level, it kind of like, you know, gives white some kind of extra move in the Scandinavian. But this is a lame setup for white anyway. Where F4, I don't think it's dangerous at all. Here you've got like Heinrich Danielson. Dude, is this an advertisement for this setup or not? I mean, there's a game, Gudmundur against Danielson, and Heinrich Danielson plays the birds opening. He's like the leading expert among grandmasters in the birds opening, you know? So this guy, Danielson, if he plays D5 against his own opening, that's got to be like a good... This might have come out of a totally different order of moves, though. I have no idea. The Gudmundur Danielson game. Anyway, so F4 D6, Knight F3. And now, I'm not really privy to knowing what's the theory with E5 here. You know, with colors reversed, I really like this. Knight F3, F5, D3. This is just a great line for white, by the way. If you ever get the chance to play this for white, this like kind of improved Lichess Gambit. Dude, check out the score that white has after pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, knight takes. Check this out. White has knight, bishop D3, 17 games. White scored 94% in this position. This is unbelievable. 94%. That means like black like won one game and lost 16 or something. I mean, that's not a good score. But we've got a kind of, you know, reversed of that, and so it's not as good. If you play E5 here, you're obviously going to get transposed to a king's gambit. So the tempo really matters. Okay, knight F6, E3, and now I'm thinking that E5 could work. You know, if you wanted to, you could probably play this. Obviously, we're in new territory here. But E3 doesn't overly impress me. Here you could play straight up, you know, like a pawn sack. I would imagine you would have compensation for the sacrificed pawn if you wanted to play it that way. But that's apparently not what Clash Kid wanted to do. Not the setup he wanted to go for. This is bad. You are black. Okay. So you made a mouse slip in a tournament game. He made the mouse slip E5, E6. It's like his pawn got stuck, and it was on a DGT board, and his pawn got stuck with this. So no, E6 is no good. You got, the computer says E6 is the best move, but what's the point of playing D6 and E6? I don't understand. The engine wants to play E6. What is it with E6? Why does the engine want to play E6 in this position? That is so strange. I mean, like any other move is normal. G6, C5. Tell me, Clash Kid, What's the deal with e6? And what did you do to make Stockfish like that move? You're surprised by the opening. I didn't face, but it's just amazing. It's just amazing that this computer wants to play e6. I don't understand what the point is. I mean, you got e5, which is speculative, obviously. You've got like bishop g4. Okay, that's a move. c5 transposing to a kind of Sicilian, or g6, which I think is probably the most normal move in this position. Yeah, he said he wanted to go for bishop b7 setup, but I mean, if that's the case, then you know your first move is not right. You know, if you want to go for that, then feel free to go ahead and play b6 on move 1. I mean, I would say go ahead, go play b6 on move 1. I mean, it's f4 is not really that great a move, so you have a lot of flexibility. If you want to play bishop b7 and e6, go ahead and do it. You know, straight away. I wouldn't mess around with d6 if that's the setup you want. So d6, knight f3, knight f6, e6 is weird. You're basically playing kind of like a tempo down old Indian. You could consider even this probably queen e7 to force through e5. And then continue with like King's Indian type of formation. This is a very creative move. I like this a lot. Check out the computer. It wanted to play rook g1. Under the influence of medicinal substances, myself and Emery Tate have played moves like rook to g1. This is definitely a drug-influenced move. Rook to g1. I like that a lot, though. We'll have to ask Jeroen. I don't know if Jeroen's here. He's a Dutch guy. But rook g1, I love it. It's like a closed Sicilian on the other side of the board. That is so outside the box. I'm sure that I've done it under the influence of certain substances, but in a tournament game, no. So b6, bishop b5, that's a weird move. There's actually a game here. Is that your game? No. It looks like it was played in like the Czech Republic, not Slovakia. Okay. So c6. Yeah, so some dude played bishop d3 here. He was trying to do a Lasker Bauer sacrifice combination with bishop takes h7, bishop takes g7 apparently. It's unbelievable, dude, that this position was reached in a tournament game in 2002. How is that even possible? It's such a random setup by black that I can't believe it's even possible. Soltigo will be back. I love the move rook g1. It's the same as playing like rook b1 on the white side of, on the black side of some kind of closed Sicilian. Okay, bishop e2 looks more natural. Yeah, and this move, you know, this is the quandary of the Queen's Indian, the bad knight, basically. This is why Grandmaster Konstantin Chernyshov specializes in like playing knight a6 in the Queen's Indian, because the knight doesn't have a good place to go. You know, oftentimes you could even, I wouldn't mind white playing a4 and knight a3 here, go fully like Chernyshov style, but it just doesn't get in the way. Like in the King's Indian, it's also a fashion to play knight a6. The problem with e3 or d3, it's creating chronic weakness in white structure. This hole on e3 is really kind of a problem, maybe problem later on. So I'd rather play c4 and follow it up with something like knight c3, or play a4 and knight a3, maybe even just knight a3, or to go with the traditional approach, yeah, the queen e1. But I don't think the queen e1 is all that great in Clash Kids game, because against the fianchetto it makes sense, but where black has this bishop here, I don't think queen e1 makes a lot of sense. So c4. Okay, so now Clash Kid, by a very weird roundabout route, is kind of like reaching a sort of normal position where both sides, okay, yeah, black has wasted a little more time than white probably. Okay, castles, knight d2. And now it almost looks like we're in a Nimzovich position, like a real Nimzovich against, you know, NN from 1899. You know, that's what it looks like. A real logical position. Black has played a slightly passive move, c6, c5. Now we're like transposed into a. We're probably going to hit a transposition into some kind of known game in a minute. After c5, bishop f3. White's really playing, you know, pretty logically. I would want to take that guy out on e5 here. You did. And then white has this difficult decision about which way to take on e5. It's really tough. It's hard to evaluate, you know, which recapture is better. F takes blocks the bishop but drives the defender away from the king side. So I don't know. Bishop takes is more positionally correct. And white has almost like, it's kind of like a king's Indian attack. It's a queen's Indian attack, actually. And now bishop g4 is just utterly random. So maneuvering, queen e1 over to here. c4 looks like the most natural move. We like to see moves like this, and you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, what is my opponent doing? You know, what are they thinking here? Queen c7, sound. And then the structural change with d4. Bishop g5. This is tempting, but take care. That piece isn't really coordinated with our other pieces. It looks like b5 was good. And then you go crazy with a5. Very logical. And then b4. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with the queen on c7 here. You know, things have changed, and it's feeling like that queen should go to b6. I'm a little bit concerned about the file. So Clash Kid with a very slow opening, but he's coming around. And even b4. c4 isn't possible. Taking gives you the a file. And a3 is just a kind of strange move. Now queen b6. Why not just take on c3? I would think just take on c3 and play queen b6 against everything. And now you're just better, like, structurally. There's this weakness, these pawns look kind of weak. So you had a simple solution here. You know, even taking on a3, but that would put his bishop on a3. So I think this move is okay, but gives white the time to take on b4. Probably this was best, and then there, queen b6, and you're just better structurally. White has been inconsistent. I guess you have to take with the a pawn here. And then they play a4, and now there's the problem. How do you break through? c4 isn't possible. This is frustrating now. White does have a protected passed pawn, but how does c4 work? You're playing this as a pawn sack? Whoa. Well, because the bishop takes f3, but what's the deal here? So it feels like it was a miscalculation by Clash Kid. Just a kind of, or optimistic sacrifice, one or the other. Yeah, that's weird. So you had like a perfectly good game, and you just like, okay, first of all, even b4 was good. But here, it looks like you just take here. And you're going to play queen b6 no matter what. And you just have a good game with a better structure. White has backward pawns everywhere. So this was risky. But still not bad to play queen b6. White's lucky that they can fix the structure here. I mean, if you play c takes b in this position, like if you just simply kept it symmetrical, you've got to be slightly better. A takes b was a more dynamic move. White has protected passed pawn. You've got this possible, you know, break. And so all you need to do is prepare it. You've got to watch f7. So I don't know, rook a c8, maybe something like this. So I think you should just prepare it, and you've still got chances. But it was risky to take the other way. You know, you could have taken the safe way with this move. It really depends on who your opponent is. Yeah, I mean, I'm not just playing games. We're basically mostly doing analysis games here. So we'll play maybe a few blitz games before the end of the stream. Yeah, Clash Kid, you wanted to go for... Okay, you were talking about that. Yeah, this was just a really optimistic... Got carried away, and you didn't calculate. Now, maybe there's some way you could make this work. It looks like Queen A6. You could have played. It's kind of sketchy, though. I mean, White has a huge center here. What, E4? It turns out this would have been really interesting. This could have been the Karpov way of playing the position. They're very careful, and everything is just nice and smooth. We get our pawn back or whatever, and life is okay. So even after that, but you went a little crazy. I think you just miscalculated, or just failed to calculate. And, you know, at the end now, you're basically like just down a pawn here. I mean, that's all there is to it. So you shouldn't be surprised to lose this against a competent player. H4 was kind of a nasty move. And they executed really well. Knight b6 is evil. That is an evil move. That's it. So weird game. I mean, White didn't play that well, and then all of a sudden, in like a period of 5 moves, got the win. You had great opportunities there, but failed to calculate, you know, enough tactically. Let me see here. The guy who's a computer and cheated against me sent me 2 messages. That's good. Let's see. Clash Kid. Okay, Divliatra. We're going to go with that game. And this is a game he played here. So, I want to call you Firewater. I like that name better. On Sundays I do simuls, and I do normal streams Monday, Wednesday, and Friday where I'm playing mostly blitz and classical chess. But this is a special stream just for my subscribers. So this is Divliatra Firewater, and he played bishop f5. This is a very rare opening. Let's check this out, how this went down. So you played Chigorin against knight f3, d4, d5, and then he played knight c3. I was just working with one of my students, you know, teaching him like how he should deal with sidelines. He plays the Chigorin, and I was helping him, like, you know, to learn what should he learn like outside of c4. And I was telling him, yeah, I really like bishop f4. G3 is a good move for White. E3 is a pretty dangerous system, but I didn't even consider knight c3 as a variation. So, but Richard Rapport would probably, you know, feel otherwise. Looks like Dizderevich played this once in his life, in what was probably a prearranged draw against Karadzica. So you have to choose between bishop f5 and bishop g4 here. It's a matter of taste. Plays bishop f5, a3. That's a nice move to play, since knight b4 is possibly on. He could play like Schlechter style, you know, e3, knight b4, bishop d3. That's probably not that bad for White, actually. But a3 is, again, looking like Ricky Rapport playing White. Something totally weird and random. Knight f6, bishop g5. Yeah, no, this is a critical juncture, you know. I guess you have a number of ways to play this position. e6 looks like the most solid. You've got to ask yourself, where do you intend to put your king in this game, and how aggressive you want to play this game. So that's the question for Divya Vatra, Firewater. Okay, this guy is now spamming me, the cheater. He's spamming my mailbox. So Queen d7 is a possibility, but if you're going to play e6 later, probably not necessary. The engine actually likes this move best. But I mean, if white takes, you take dynamically toward the center, and you have a position where you're probably going to castle. Actually, you could castle either way. But you decided to play knight e4. My problem with knight e4, unlike queen d7 and unlike e6, the problem with the move, it doesn't develop any pieces. It's not really a constructive move. And the other problem with the move is that you're actually trading, I would say, a badly placed piece on c3. The Chigorin knight is, we both have them obviously here, but you know, you're actually trading his badly placed knight. So when you block someone, how come they can still send me messages? Oh, he created a new account. Hold on. I'm going to have to block this guy's other account, because that must be what it is. Let's see. All right. Why can't I hover? I'm not going to click on that. Can't open link in new tab. Oh, well, I guess I'm going to have to. Interesting game. He's sending me interesting games. Interesting game where he cheated. This is the game where he cheated? What is this? Alright, dude. This is like a new account this guy created since yesterday. Now he blocked that too. Okay, so he might not even have a clue. Alright, knight e4, bishop e3. This is obviously a bad move by white. You've got to take here. White's got to take here. So bishop e3 just justified your whole plan. You played knight takes c3, messing up his structure. Then b6. Okay, what's the deal with this move? You obviously see the b file, but you know, it wouldn't be my first priority here. Although you're thinking prophylactically, which is good. Castling queenside's pretty crazy. But possible. It's definitely not like your typical position. Something like queen d7. You could meet rook b1 with rook b8 or castles. It's just a question of how dynamically you want to play. I mean, I wouldn't be afraid to play this with black, you know, like castle into his open file. I think you have blockading possibilities with like knight a5 and f6 and knight a5, something like that. So, I mean, b6 looks like a weak move. It's not a terrible move, but it doesn't contribute much to your position. He says he does long castle. Oh, again, you're asking for trouble. The computer says knight a5 is the best move at first glance, but again, I feel like you're neglecting development. I know this is a somewhat closed position, but I don't like bishop e4. You have to develop your pieces here, and you're lucky he played that move, because knight d2 would have been probably more constructive for him. You know, so at the end of the day, you just end up in this position where your structure is a little better than his. I mean, it's probably about equal, but you could have had a lot more. And then this is like reasonable. If you're not going to castle kingside, you know, to do this. I think I would maybe want to commit to castling, but queen c6 is okay. h5 is fine. Notice that queen h5 check is not a problem because of bishop g6, guys. Just Just let everyone know who's a viewer. This is a special stream I'm doing once a week for my subscribers, going over their games, maybe playing some extra blitz games, but it's not my usual weekly stream, which I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I also do have a simul stream that I do on Sundays. So this is a subscriber stream. H5, this is probably best to throw that in there. You might as well, I mean, if you're going to castle queenside. But anyway, queen c6 is fine. He should play king d2. It's a kind of deep move. A lot of people don't have a feel for the king in the middle game. It takes a lot of experience, but he should know that in this type of structure, it's basically like a French defense. If you want to see like play with the king, like check out Spassky playing against Tal in their match in like, I don't know, the late 50s or 60s. Spassky playing with the king on the white side of the winnower, French. The king, you know, it just has to find interesting places sometimes when you play sharply with white, but this is an excellent move where the king would stay very well placed here, protected by the shield of pawns. That's actually an excellent position, and you could give himself like h4 maybe later on. So look how he ties his queen down. His queen could actually go somewhere like b4 and maybe activate this way. So queen d2, this is the worst possible position for his queen on d2. No learning allowed. Learning is the point. You're still allowed to watch and learn, of course. We haven't banned visitor chat yet. So you kind of got the minimum. You got the minimum here for what you could have gotten out of this game. And you're flirting with getting your queen trapped, but it doesn't look like it's in the cards. He tried. Oh, he snapped the pawn on c2. I take back about getting your queen trapped. Although he should have played rook. No, he doesn't have a move. Okay. He could have played bishop d3. Queen a4 is just good. Alright. He doesn't have enough pieces to give you an attack that'll give you any kind of headaches. And you just materialize. Materializing like someone from the USS Enterprise. It's just a pawn up. Little bit of... Now he knows where to put his king, notice. He feels more comfortable there with the queens off the board, but he's got a little bit of compensation. The wascally wabbit. A little bit. Kind of the a pawn coming down and the king in the center of the board. Rook g8 is not my first choice. Why were you so hesitant to move this h pawn? Because he might play h4 and freeze it. Monkey pushing wood, but if he plays king d2, white can just blast up in the center with e5. Well, I mean, even if you blast up in the center, he has so many pawns, it's like, you know, he'll just take with his doubled pawn on c3. It's just not that easy. There's like 6 pawns in white's center. It's 5. It's pretty massive. Black played e5 now. What? Oh, you're on the a3 pawn. Okay, that's sneaky. Well calculated, I suppose. He didn't take. Wow, so you played a bizarre move here. Well, this is just random. You just went random. And he just made a random mistake. Okay. I mean, one would assume, like, you take, he plays bishop takes e5, and you play bishop takes a3, and you're still up a pawn. And you've actually clarified the situation, which I think is okay. Rook a2, bishop d6, goodbye bishop pair. And you're just you're gonna have to watch out for like one cheapo, you know, like bishop c6, bishop takes e5, rook takes a7, and it's a problem, you know. That could be a problem. This variation is kind of like the nightmare situation. You're like up a piece and you have to resign. Be very careful about your king position. So bishop d6, yeah. It almost works, like rook takes a7, but not quite. If he does it right away, you sneak away. To play like bishop here, a5 or something? How does this work? Oh, bishop c8 is nice, because you can block then. Rook takes, king takes, rook a1, and bishop a6. That's like a sneaky way of escaping from the mate. But anyway... Yeah, I think that Firewater just, he just gave the guy a pawn back without any real good reason there with bishop c5. a kind of random blunder. He wanted to open the position, sort of. But I don't know. You had a lot of time on the game. I mean, it's 6 minutes here, and you just went crazy. Your opponent was actually slightly lower rated. And you're going to walk into it, aren't you? He doesn't see bishop c6. But you win a piece instead. So it was a pretty like blunder-filled like last 10 moves by both sides, and you were lucky to win, honestly. I mean, after you let it get to a totally random after bishop c5, like you probably at this point, I mean, there's no reason you should be winning here. You know, he's got this pawn on f6. You let the position just get totally out of control. Okay, so what's up next? We got a million messages from Troll, Clash Kid, and then Bob. Bob was up next, and then we'll, you know, if there's no other games, we'll play some blitz games against subscribers. This is Bob's game. Bob was black against Monkey. Bob took me out yesterday. A very nice game. Oh, the old bishop c4. Man, I wish I had $1 for everybody that played this. It's just getting ridiculous. I mean, why does everyone play this? Is there somebody, like, somebody recommend this in some video somewhere? It's actually only good against one thing. Like, as far as I know, the only position where bishop c4 is good is when black plays d6. In that line, it's understandable. Like Udasin, what am I looking for? Michael Adams played this with white, you know. But other than that, you know, I'm almost at the point where I want to play like e6 every single game because I'm so bored of people playing like bishop c4 randomly. Anyway, okay, knight c6, bishop c4. You played g6, Bob. It's a really tough call between e6 and g6. It's really a matter of like which way you prefer to develop your pieces. You could even play knight f6 there. Yeah, somebody was telling me about this guy Nikolaitis recently. I think it was him. Let's see. e6. Well, there's no reason to play e6 on this move, Bob. You might want to wait a move on that. You're actually letting him, you know, you're actually giving him a chance to punish you by playing e6. You're giving him a chance to play d4, and that's a big mistake. You know, having said g6, you need to play bishop g7 here, and then c3, and then you probably need to play e6. And this line is, although some people believe in d6, I prefer e6. This line I've had a number of games on the stream against a lot of players. I've even played this with white in a game I drew against Eric Kislik in Budapest. I think I tried it with white just the one time. I think that was a draw if I didn't lose. Albert Vida played knight takes d4 against me. But I don't understand Bob's move order. What's the point of playing e6 and then you know, what's the point of playing g6 and then not bishop g7? So white misses his chance to pounce with d4. Now you played bishop g7. Okay, so now we're basically, white is playing a defensive setup against the English with bishop c5, except the colors are reversed. It's a totally viable defensive system. It's a kind of closed Sicilian. a3 is perfectly fine. White can also play without a3. White can just let the bishop go to b3, get traded by a knight on a5 or something like that. There's some good players, notably, who play this setup that Monkey is playing here with white. There are some good players who play this setup with black, notably Ivan Sokolov and Sergei Movsesian. But, you know, to play it with white is kind of like a waste of the white pieces. But I can't be too critical. It would like, okay, that would be like saying, okay, all the closed Sicilian is a waste of the white pieces. I mean, maybe it is, objectively, but there's certain advantages in playing, you know, stuff that people aren't well prepared for. So here, white just simply overlooked the b2 pawn, and you should just grab the pawn, but you missed it. Bishop takes b2. It would be interesting if he were to play like knight bd2 here. You know, I think I would lay off this rook, to be perfectly honest. If you take the rook, your dark squares are fatally weak. That's the kind of exchange I don't want to take when I'm up a pawn for no compensation. You know, sometimes people are like, hey, why didn't you take the exchange? Yeah, well, I don't want to get checkmated on the dark squares. I've got a pawn, and I don't need any more material to win the game. So that would be an interesting position, though. If that were to happen, Monkey should do that. I mean, he should play knight bd2. Give himself a practical chance to win the game, rather than this like robotic rook a2, which actually, you know, just forces the bishop back where it should go. You know, you've got knight bd2. So anyway, instead Bob played... I want to thank all you guys, by the way, who subscribed. Please tell your friends and, you know, encourage other people to join the subscribers here on my Slaggy channel on Twitch. The lucky towel is enough to attract more. Anyway, Bob played a solid move, h6. Bishop back to c1. Monkey realized his mistake. He lost valuable time, although h6 is a kind of, you know, it's a marginal move. Is it positive? Is it negative? Does it weaken the black king side? Is it constructive? I think it's constructive, but you have to take care not to overextend yourself. Knight c3 now, d5. It's not obligatory to play d5, Bob. Whatever structure you feel more comfortable with. You could also just play something quieter like d6. Now white exchanged. Probably like an inaccuracy, because it's a stronger pawn. I want to check my ping here. I think the engine running is kind of slowing me down. I'm going to turn this off for a second. I got ping of 200. Whoa, why do I have a ping of 200? Yesterday I was up to like 150. And I think because Dropbox was on, slowing down my computer, but now I have Dropbox turned off. And I don't understand why my ping is so high. Just my internet in general. Although turning the engine off looks like it got it down to 160. What if a subscriber cheats? Then we like secretly flog them, you know, in private. Yeah, that's the problem with like memberships on chess.com. That's the thing, dude. Yeah, these sites, they don't want to punish people for cheating. If a subscriber cheats, I would turn them in, you know, no differently than anyone else. It's really, you know, a few dollars. I don't care. It's not correct to cheat. Let's see. d5. So monkey, not a good exchange. You know, in general, unless you have a really good reason for this. If you have play along the e file, something really concrete, you shouldn't exchange this. This bishop becomes alive, and every time you're sitting there, you're thinking about your pieces and the other guy's pieces. You need to say to yourself, and this applies to everyone from beginners up until 2200, you need to talk to yourself and say, look, when I make this move, what am I doing for my opponent? And not just my pieces, you know. Monkey may be sitting there thinking, okay, I'll weaken his pawn on d5. I'll open the e-file for my rook. But you've got to say to yourself, what am I doing for my opponent? This bishop on c8 is coming to life. So a bishop that's blocked in is suddenly given like all this more scope. And that's, I think, the biggest defining factor here, except for the fact that white traded off their strong point as well. Bishop e6. What about bishop g4? Is it worth considering? Let's see where our ping is. So back to 200. I guess the engine didn't matter. Bishop g4 looks like a shot in the dark. Okay. Bishop e6 was good. Korchnoi, famous game against Stefan Sabo where he played like g5, guys, and g5 and knight g6. And he just pushed all of Stefan Sabo's pieces back, actually evacuating the king. Korchnoi was white in the mirror image of this position, but it's an excellent example of coordination of pieces and pawns where all the pieces are behind the shell of the pawn chain. I use that game as an example a lot. But I don't think that black should be hesitant to play g5, probably in this type of position. That's actually second move according to Stockfish, because we're going to go like knight g6. First bishop e6, and then knight g6. And eventually, you know, I don't see any sacrifices realistically for white here. You know, I don't usually like to play g5, but this looks like a position where you could do it. Okay, b6 is super solid. It's not a bad move. Then the thing is that the monkey gets a little bit frisky with bishop f4, and now there's this knight e5 thing. Bob played bishop g4. Inconsistent. G5 is interesting. I like it. I like it. You know, I would be concerned about like bishop G3, but there I think Bob has knight F5 now, and you're going to trap that dark squared bishop. Take him away. Take him away with Calgon, but actually he has this move. So this could get a little complicated. Then you have to play some weird games like go here, and not really sure what's going on, but I think it's good for black. We want to get the bishop, the dangerous dark squared bishop. So Bob he was close. And then what happens? Bishop G4, kind of random. I think this exchange favors the defender, which is white. He was playing a defensive system basically. And though Bob remains solid, he doesn't have an advantage any longer. Bishop C1 yet again. And this is a long game, guys, so I'm not going to like spend too much more time on this. Let's see till we get to the crux of the issue. C4 interesting. I think that's kind of weird move. That bishop can redeploy back on B1. Bob has to be careful. His white squares, you know, are actually attackable from B1. So I think I would have held off on C4. And then B3 also not necessary. I mean, bishop B1, I think the piece is coming in better over there. Wouldn't bother with B3. You know, you're actually attacking, you're kind of attacking black's strong side here, it feels like. And the game was pretty tough. The white squares look kind of weak. But what's the deal with this? Queen A5 is happening, or something with Queen A5? Yeah, that's the trick. Knight takes F4 and Queen A5. Bob missed it. He felt comfortable trading queens, but he missed Queen A5, winning decisive material there. And then we reach this endgame where the two bishops are slicing and dicing. So it's unpleasant for black now. Black could have had the bishop pair himself, but instead, this is a good decision, Bob. A very good decision, trading dark squared bishop. Trading off bishops when the other guy has the bishop pair is absolutely key. Just here your knight is going to H4. Yeah, so monkey shouldn't have played. He shouldn't have played G4, obviously. I wouldn't want to have this position now for either side against the computer. Probably both sides have to be very accurate. But G4 creating a massive holes in your position. Maybe F4 is the scariest square. Knight H4, rook E3, and then now Bob has all three pieces coordinated actually coming down on B2. So that bishop, although it's not a bad bishop really, has a hard time coordinating the other pieces. Bob has a big advantage. But trading rooks, and now rook F3 or rook A6, it looks like you have two ways to win material. He went with rook F3, which doesn't win material. Shit. So he had to play rook A6, and I might have made the same mistake in blitz. Bob actually had more time. Monkey's hanging on, and rook F4. This is a bad square. You don't want your rook there, it's immobilized. You need to put it back on F6 if you're going to move it at all. So white was actually winning after that bad placement of the rook on F4. So all hell broke loose here. And I guess the rest of the game is becoming like a blitz finale. The passed pawn had its say. Actually, it's like equal now. This should be a draw. And then black kept his A pawn. And then we have a technical position where this is a close one. My thoughts on these endgames, which I haven't memorized perfectly, are that it's optimal to have a B pawn in this kind of 3 against 3 and one on the other side. The B pawn is the best pawn. I think the rook pawn is probably a draw. This position is probably a draw. I mean, I'm pretty sure. So rook A6 is a good move. Now F3. And then I don't know if you should go back or play King E5. King E5 is actually nice and active. So this looks like a draw. White went crazy. Played f4. I'm saying this is a draw, but maybe I should be a little more careful about my pronouncements. I mean, now the pawn's down on a3. It's not really... It's looking kind of a little bit dangerous. Yeah, you should play like rook a7. Kind of a technical position. His rook is in a good position, actually. This rook. It would be a draw, I think, if the rook were in front of the pawn. Much more easily than this, though. This is very annoying. So I guess black has some winning chances here. f4. And, yeah, now it's a dead draw. And it ended in a draw, I guess. Okay, guys, interesting game. Let's play a couple of blitz games. We've got challenges from Mule Skinner or whatever, blitz, or if anybody wants to challenge, we've got like 45 minutes, so time for one more game. Mule Skinner, and then Firewater, and somebody else. Yeah, I think there were some instructive points, though. I mean, I think for me the most interesting what I want to play here today. The most interesting thing was how Monkey exchanged on d5 in that structure. Probably that's a serious mistake. He has to realize that he's trading off his strong point. Mule Skinner. You don't want to play the e3 Benko? I think I've played this against him before. Weird move, g6 now. But then again, what's wrong with it? I mean, am I going to play d5 here for real? It's a principled move, but it feels wrong somehow. Okay, guys, this will probably be our 3 challenges. Mule Skinner, Firewater, and World Loser. We're probably going to need... You know, if someone else wants to challenge, they can, but I'm not guaranteeing any more games. I've got to go in like 45 minutes. Tempting to play d5 again. What is the theory on this? I should look this up, actually. Like, concretely look this up. d5 will transpose to a Panov Botvinnik. But I think that Mule Skinner got a decent version now. You know, so I've got no advantage, really. I'm going to have to look this up, man. You made me curious. We'll check after the game. But, I mean, is d5 a move? Is that really the best move for me? Just straight away. I mean, now... e6. Yeah, we can play it like a Benko or like a Benoni. But I still think that black has good chances for counterplay. I've seen Caruana and some other people play positions like this for black. Similar positions. Is d5 practically good or not? You like your chat silent and calm. Stealing booze from your grandma. I knew we couldn't trust you. Now h3. It might be better for me to play knight to d4 straight away. Actually, no, I'm having hallucinations. Okay, I think h3 is good. So we want to make sure he doesn't trade off, you know, any pieces. I thought that he should play e6 right now, straight away with no d6. That's got to be the best try. Real quick, rook e8. You know, try to turn it out so that I don't have time for bishop d3 and castles. e6, bishop d3, take, rook e8, check. Maybe you can do some kind of Morozevich exchange sacrifice with rook takes e3, for example. Ron Burnett did that against me once. Just basically a whole exchange on e3 for a bishop. It's like lifelong compensation. So this is the actual position. Mule Skinner spent time on d6, and I think that's a tad passive. Playable, but a tad passive. Troll in a Roll says, I'm 28 years old. And playing chess for 6 months now. Is it possible for me? I think he's trolling a roll. You've definitely been playing chess more than 6 months. You've been on my stream longer than 6 months. How many hours should I study each day? If, you know, this is depending on basically, you know, if you're drinking vodka while doing it, I would say you only need like 5 hours. But if you're studying while you're sober, you probably need to up it to like 8. In order to improve, what time control is better? 1 plus O or O plus 1? I'd probably go with the O plus 1. But I'm not sure. Man, this is super passive for black. Just ultra passive. 98, moving away from the king side. I'm going to go bishop g5, get this guy up there. Queen d2, maybe bishop h6. Taking consideration that I don't really want to trade pieces with a space advantage. He can play knight e5. Actually, Bob should recognize this exchange from yesterday. Pawn takes is an interesting way to dynamize the position there. Dynamize, is that a word? It sounds like it has to be a word. Dynamize. Bob's win against me, still painful even now. It's not that I lost to you, Bob, for the first time that bothers me. It was the way I lost. I felt like I was really overlooking some very, very obvious things, like the fact that g7 was unprotected, was protected. I was having hallucinations. Actually, I didn't lose to Bob. Bob gave me a draw, but he offered a draw in a winning position. I mean, I still count it as a win for you, Bob. Do you ever read those books that are just algebraic notation and nothing else? They seem really miserable. You mean, dynamize is a real word. Is that the correct spelling? Troll is trolling. He's bored. He's basically a good guy, but when he starts to get bored and drink too much, he can get kind of rowdy. Unethical demon. You seen him in the King Crusher stream. Oh man, I can't believe it. We let him in here? That's alright. Troll, I'll never think the same about you. Mule Skinner is really... Okay, let me put it this way. Mule Skinner is really a tough opponent for me when I'm playing morning streams in Europe. But now it's like reversed. It's afternoon here and it's like night for Mule Skinner. So I have the feeling that Mule Skinner is actually like tired and he's not his full strength. He's probably a player who plays better in the morning. He's just waking, he's playing too much time. He's using too much time. He's speaking correctly without saying stupid words. Yes. A6, but I have the feeling this is not our usual Mule Skinner. He's not 100% here. A little slower than usual, a little more passive than usual. These are signs that your opponent is tired. Okay, the American spelling might be with a Z. Yeah, that's probably what I would expect. But I mean, I was on the fence as to whether it was even a word. You could say dynamite, the position. Dynamite, the verb. Parallels with yesterday's game with someone, once again. Keith Erdekel challenges. Erdekel, I don't think we're going to be able to do it, man. It's not a normal stream. Do we have any new subscribers today? We got to get at least one new subscriber for the subscriber stream. Come on. F4 after yesterday's game with Bob. I'm very concerned about the F5 square. Blast away with active pieces here. Rook E1. What's my F rook going to do? If I can't get through F5. We have other ideas though. Grandmaster Mihai Suba would say this has dynamic potential. The rook on F1. Reshevsky, another great positional player who appreciated latent rook potential. But Mule Skinner is he's a little he's fading, man. He's never this slow. He's definitely not his 100% self. Bishop d3 now. And I think we're on the verge of winning material, but not quite. Or are we? Now f4 is so tempting. Bishop takes e7 doesn't work. Bishop takes f5, knight takes f5, leads his knight to where it really belongs. So we go f4. Here we go again with this weakening of my own position. Probably justifiable here. Bishop takes d3, queen takes d3. That looks good. He's got queen b6 check, winning pawn on b2. That's not. There's no time for that. So bishop d4 check, king h2, and then what? And then what? He could weaken himself with f6. He can play. Actually, what can he play? A rook e8 drops a piece, or does it? Yeah, white's got to be better. This is a vastly improved version of my game with Bob from yesterday. If you subscribe, if I subscribe, would you record a VHS of your streams and ship them to Russia? Dude, they would implode. They would impound those videos. I can't even send a package to Hungary, dude, without it getting stolen. How in the world am I going to send something to Russia? Are you serious? I mean, come on, man. You know better than that. They would never make it, you know, through the Russian postal system. Hungary is probably not quite as bad, and I don't have much hope for that. Don't ever send anything C-mail. By the way, on another note, I once had a friend who tried to send like his chess books via so-called C-mail, by boat, basically. Black's a little congested in this position. Slightly congested. But man, he's hanging on like... He's like a dog chewing on my ankle. Doesn't want to die, you know. He just basically doesn't want to die. G4, bishop takes d3, queen takes d3. It's kind of weakening, but I'm going to try it. Taking away the f5 square from our worthy opponent. Are we overextended, or do we just possess like a crushing spatial advantage? Which is it? I'm unimpressed by bishop takes f6. That structure actually not all that bad for black. Not that easy to attack those pawns on like d6 and f6 at all, in fact. Maybe I should consider, like, I should have considered bishop h6 instead. So, am I overextended, or do we just have a crushing spatial advantage? Which is it? His knight is kind of illin, but we are a little extended. Okay, that's with check. What you're trying to capture there is with check. I can take on f6. And play something like knight e4. It's interesting. I can't play f5. Oh, he took the bait. He took the pawn. Mule Skinner took the bait. Debate bait. Knight takes check. And now we're on our own. That's what the old Fritz used to say. Right, just crushing pressure. Paralyzing black. Potential passed pawn. How do we finish him off, though? The queen. Queen d4. The parallels of the game with Bob are just startling here. Oh no. Knight there. It's like what I wanted to do against Bob yesterday, but I was unable to achieve it. So we're up in exchange, and he's kind of hanging on. He resigned, though. Okay, it's not necessary to resign. I don't like your chances against Magnus Carlsen here, but if it was a tournament game, I would play it out a little bit with black. Thank you for the game. World Loser is up 5+3. Long time no see, World Loser. Let's see how you can do, World Loser, when you're playing in the evening. He's pretty tough when I take him on in the morning, but maybe we have an advantage now. Plus, it's possible he hasn't been playing that much. I'm not sure how active he's been. Guys, no challenges, no rated challenges. I know you're a computer. If you challenge me to rated, the last 2 rated challengers were like busted. F4 from World Loser. Attacking the head of the pawn chain. Not recommended. Not recommended by Nimzovich, but maybe it's not that bad. We are ready to do business. It's amazing how often I get the move d5. It's not the critical move, but guys, we're gonna play this game and like one more probably. Okay, he defended e4, unfortunately. That's pretty irritating. So it looks like I'm not gonna have time to play knight takes e4. I have knight h5, which is kind of cool. Knight h5, but it doesn't work quite immediately. It could be really fun though. I don't know if this is black's best black's best move, but it's sure fun. So I was thinking, okay, queen h4, bishop f2, yeah. Or queen h4, g3, knight takes g3, bishop f2. But here I decided to go crazy with the f5, and we're just gonna go nuts on World Loser and try to take him out, you know, with the psychic. Not psychic, but psycho killer. Great song by the Talking Heads. I think one of the first, you know, and most influential alternative bands, by the way. World Loser, how can you get away with this? There has to be like a forced win here. Queen h4 check. g3, and yes, he has a number of defensive resources I wasn't really counting on. I don't know. Just play the obvious move. What are his defensive resources exactly? Guys, it's not a general blitz stream, and I'm out of here in like 25 minutes. So you know, it's a subscriber stream. We're only going to play like probably one more game after this. Okay. Did I do the right thing? I just take on f5 probably. No. I don't know what I'm thinking about. I mean, I have to take here. This is ridiculous. Panicking. I was a little scared of takes on g6, honestly. I'm hoping that World Loser is like groggy and tired, and hopefully he's vulnerable to tactical immolation. And now for our next trick. How do we finish him off? Knight f6. Yes. Knight f6. Super deep. Knight f6. Yes, you have a way to defend that, don't you? What is going on? Rack and stack and stack them up. F4 is attacking the head of the pawn chain, not traditional strategy. Sometimes it's good. D4, C5, D5, E5, E4, D6, F4. That's one variation where I've seen this F4 type of thing almost work. What am I looking at here? Okay. So, the Magic Towel, we're playing players who are not challenging me to rated games. No computers. I'll have to write that in the stream, like, no computers. I think that people just don't realize, like, it's immoral to use a computer when they play. Immoral and just, like, against the rules. Okay, please don't tell me you have some kind of defense. C5. That's kind of perverse. But I'm not sure, does it work? It might not work. Oh my god. Takes, knight d5. What if I played it first like knight takes e4, then c5? Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, c5. Knight takes e4, knight takes e4, c5. World Loser is fast. He's fast and he's furious. This is the problem. He's got tactics too. Damn. It looks like it doesn't work because he has knight f6 check. C5, knight f6 check. King h8. That's just insane. Okay. There's some sort of positional advantage there. That's ridiculous. I'm running out of time and I don't see how to win material. He's obviously coming with rook e1. He's extremely strong with like tactics. So I'm just banking on this endgame now. And his knight being like almost trapped. He's overextended a little bit. I mean, I was like rook h4. Almost works there. He has some kind of tactical answer to everything. It's crazy. King g7, g4. Bishop d3. Yeah, I have to be careful actually. King takes, takes, takes. He has compensation. Maybe it's better not to even go there. Just play some kind of endgame where I'm just slightly better. Try to grind him down in an endgame where I'm lost, basically. He has this too. Jeez. He sees everything. Rook e4. I have to fight for a draw here. Okay. We have some compensation. I'm not sure if it's enough. Guys, one more game after this. Rook d8. Okay. I think we have some kind of force field. Force field. Do we have a force field or not? I'm not really sure. I guess I'm just losing, huh? Played an unbelievable game, dude. Just an unbelievable game. King here, king here, king here. H4. Man. Look at this game. He was like so close to lost in every position, and he finds it. Takes on f5. I should have played bishop d4. That's best move. I was afraid of this. And like, how am I not winning? Why didn't I take with the pawn here? It's so stupid. Actually, the computer says I should take with the bishop. Castles. I don't understand how I don't win a piece in this position. So I should have played c5. I don't understand how this works. Oh, before my queen was on e7. Oh, man. That was the point. So I had to do this the move earlier. Queen e7 was a terrible mistake. c5 first. That's just winning outright. Okay. Because now I did this, and now c5 doesn't work anymore. Does it work? I thought this doesn't work. D takes c, knight takes c, Knight d5. Now, apparently I can play like queen g7, which I didn't see. Knight takes f6, queen takes f6, and I'm still winning. I basically win the exchange. So I let him off the hook without winning material. And now the engine says he's just better. Should have played rook e4 there. Wow. Knight a6 was considered better. I would have misevaluated this position. The engine says white's better here. I mean, that's... Of course, I didn't see rook f6 like our opponent. This is apparently a mistake. Hard to believe. And this ending is unpleasant. It looks like I might have reached a drawn position, but then I messed it up. I don't trust the engine here completely. I don't understand. King f4. It says it's a draw. I don't know if I understand how this is a draw. g5 check, king f3. But why would he play king f3? a6, h4, h6. I played h6, a3, a5. Apparently this is the losing move. Then it says it's the second best move. Okay, g5 check, king g4. I saw his king coming through here. King g6. Okay, I failed to see that if d6, I can play h5 check and then go back. Okay, so g5 is apparently a draw. King g6, g5 check, king e4. So it is a force field. My initial evaluation was right, but my execution was bad. Okay, guys, one last game. Fire water here. Blue Crow, sorry you're late, man. You just missed it. So I had to play a draw with g5, but I should have seen the win earlier too. I saw the idea of c5 just to move too late. When I played queen e7, it was still working, but it was more complicated. Okay, last game for today, guys. A subscriber stream. Subscribers only. In the very end is not a draw. I blundered. You know, I lost like one of my waiting moves with a5. I think it's probably fatal. If I played a6 instead of a5, that would have been much more likely a draw. It was either g5 or a6, I think. h6 and g5 or a6. Okay, we'll do like the Kovalenko. What Kovalenko did to me. It's not really good, but never mind. He played queen a4 check. There's a move you won't find in the database. Most likely. King f8. I better be careful where I click next. Can I unclick that? Difficult to decide where to put the minor piece there. Divyavatra is playing strangely. I jokingly called him Firewater. So whatever, man. It's a Benoni. World loser taking me out. Playing really resourcefully when he needed to in a lost position. Here, I don't know. I mean, it's probably better to play knight f6. The temptation to play knight e7, try to get tricky and weird. Basically a kind of Benoni. Knight f6 puts more pressure. I mean, the thing about knight e7, it doesn't put any pressure on the pawn on e4. It's just like a way of playing to try to confuse the opponent. Now it looks like b5. b5 is an interesting possibility I should probably avail myself of. while it's literally possible. The queen is very strangely placed on a3 here. If e5, things get kind of complicated. It should be good for black, I would imagine. Okay guys, tomorrow I have my normal stream. Tomorrow and Friday, Wednesday and Friday, normal stream for everybody. This was specifically a subscriber stream. I'll try to send all the subscribers an automated message when I'm going to do a subscriber stream once a week. Because it will, I know it's wildfire, not firewater, but it's easier to remember. Firewater. He may not know that firewater is the American Indian name for alcohol. Okay. But that's another story. White playing super strangely in this game. Queen very oddly misplaced on a3. The bishop on c2. Strangely placed. He can't bring his knight to c3. Yeah, last game against World Loser, we had a great position, but went south. Now here again, I'm putting pressure on e4, trying to get something going tactically, but I don't see it. I've got knight takes d5, but no knight takes d5's on. Everything's protected, and I need to develop my knight somehow. What would Nick Defermian do? a5, I guess. What about, you know, just expanding on the queen side? Okay, this move doesn't really do any concrete damage, I guess. Bishop g5. e5, he could play. This rook is unprotected there. I thought maybe the knight on b4 will be useful, but maybe I pulled the trigger too fast on this move. Suddenly white's pieces are starting to look pretty good. Although we've got d3 and knight d3. Probably I need to get rid of this guy and then unpin myself with maybe something like queen b6. And go from there. Everything looks pretty good. I do have c4, but then he'll have bishop e3, so I don't know. Looks like a good Benoni. A very good Benoni for black. We did a lot of analysis. We saw games. We played a few blitz games. Blue Crow. Guys, I encourage you to subscribe. Anyone who's... Actually, it's mostly viewers here who are subscribers already. So, but if you're not a subscriber, take advantage to become a subscriber. You can take part in this weekly subscriber stream. Also, this weekend, I'm going to analyze a couple of games from the last simul from players who are subscribers. My YouTube channel is Video Chess Training on YouTube. Please check it out. And yeah. You can also donate and support the stream via PayPal. Much appreciated. You can do so. Now we've got everybody's happy. The rooks are happy, the bishops are happy, the knights are happy. And there's some symmetry going on about this. Yeah, he's feeling the pressure on f2. But I'm very glad to get rid of that bishop. That's a very important piece for white, the dark squared bishop. And it looks ominous here. He's not lost, but he's getting close to it. Good pressure on that diagonal. The threat of knight d3 is in the offing here. Now rook b1. Rook b1. White's just hanging on. But he's hanging on well, I will say. That's kind of what World Loser did too. He had an optically bad position, but maybe lost, but he hung in really well. It's part of the game. That queen on a3 is looking pretty suspicious. Knight d3. Knight d3. There's some insane tactics. Knight d3. I'm threatening b4, winning the queen. Maybe he should just, yeah, I was gonna say, maybe he should just give up the rook. If b4, knight takes c4. Practical sacrifice by white, but probably best under the circumstances. And it looks like we're just tactically winning here. Up the exchange for a pawn, but with two very good bishops. The rooks are very well placed. White's weakened himself a little bit with h4. I think we should win this pretty much 100% of the time, no matter what the time control. Speaking of YouTube, notice the category was gaming and showed the football video game. 208. Blitz. Most chess vids are in the category 8. Yeah, mine are in education category. Interesting question. Which is better? How much for lichess membership? Lichess is as much as you want to pay. It's completely like donation based. I support lichess with a donation, and I encourage everyone who can afford it, to support lichess to do so. Oh, we've got g4, g3 coming to a theater near you, but we don't have enough control of g3 to get that through. I'd also like to get in the f5 of last game. I just can't seem to make tactics work. He's actually got a similar style to to World Loser. Good practical defender. If I play bishop g4, I'm going to end up trading the white squared bishops. Maybe picking off a pawn in the process. I mean, as long as he doesn't have some kind of trick here, trying to win this pawn. We take his b pawn off. We can't. It was good calculation by me. How about, oh man, and knight g4 is also irritating. We try to trade queens here. Bishop takes b2. Ah, I've got that, I hope. Even this is kind of a little sketchy because he's got rook b1. I could play bishop d4. He went for this way. I'm scared now. I'm lucky, I think rook b1 was a lot better. He's looking at like knight e3, knight f5 with a really strong knight. That would be menacing. So a player who's very practical, dangerous if you give him an opportunity, it looks like. World Loser, sorry for my game. I was lucky. Well, no, you defended like the only way you could, but your technique was excellent. It should have been a draw, though, ironically. I had the feeling the king and pawn in game was a draw, but my execution was bad. So, guys, we'll be back on. Be back on tomorrow. Tomorrow's my regular stream. Right now in the summer, July and August, I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 4 p.m. here on lichess and Twitch. Please subscribe to the channel. Become a subscriber on our humble channel and learn some chess and support the stream while you're doing it. That is kind of a weird move. Bring it down with rook c2. We're going to bring it down with rook c2 on the 7th and on f2. He's got that guarded, though. I mean, I don't understand queen f1. I mean, it seems like a kind of weird move. It looks like he just miscalculated. We're basically just up a piece now. That should wrap it up. I mean, I guess we were always winning here once we took the material. But white's opening was really weird. Queen a4. He got his queen in a strange position right from the get-go. I'm giving him my pawn, but I mean, if I can trade pieces, it's just game over. It doesn't matter if I lose this pawn on b4. I recommend you like follow the same type of practical advice. Like if you're up a piece, just be up a piece, you know, trade queens. And oh no, that's cute. Cute way to simplify. Can't say I planned it like that. That will end it. Bishop extra. It's mate. Not a lot of options for white. I'm lucky though. I was like, what am I gonna do? Play f5? Alright guys, thank you for a fun stream. Oh yeah, Zen Chess subscribed today. Thank you, Zen Chess. He wasn't in the stream chatting, so I didn't really keep him in mind. But anyway, Zen Chess is awesome. So we've got another subscriber. 15 people subscribed to the channel. You guys rock, and we'll be back with our normal stream for subscribers and viewers tomorrow, Wednesday. It's let's see, Wednesday 4 p.m. and Friday 4 p.m. and Sunday a simul I do on lichess at 5 p.m. Eastern time. All those times are Eastern time. I had a plus 1000 cent upon advantage after move 15. Yeah. I will see you guys on tomorrow. Anyway, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for joining us for the stream. And thanks, Blue Crow, for joining us and helping with moderation. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.